All right. Hello, Mr. O'Neill. Thanks for sitting down with me today.
Hey, Mr. Simon, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's not every day I get to interview local celebrities around here, so
I guess today is another one of those days.
yeah, well, I appreciate you making the time, and I'm excited to introduce you to our audience. First, I just wanted to say a few more words about the organization I represent and why we're here today. So you have a copy of the first book that the organization produced. It's called Bridges Across Humanity, and that was a book that I
Yes.
worked a lot on. It's about religious literacy, common themes across religions, but that's just part of a larger project which is a nonprofit organization called Universal Enlightenment and Flourishing.
Mm.
And so it's been around for about a decade. And the mission of it is basically to research and work toward a better understanding of what human flourishing is, and not just in an academic sense, but in like a day-to-day, real person, real life sense, which is why we're doing this series of interviews to see
Hmm.
what love, learn, and play looks like in the lives of people who are out there doing cool stuff.
I
Um,
like that.
so that's kind of what we came up with in a nutshell on what human flourishing is through all our research. And it's
Hmm.
what we call the love, learn, play mindset, or LLP for short.
Hmm.
And that's kind of culminated in this more recent book that's simply called Love, Learn, Play. And you and I need to get together in person at some point sooner rather than later so I can give you a copy.
Wonderful. I
Uh,
like it. I like that love, learn, and play. Yeah, it's very engaging topic or way of seeing things, framing things. It's very interesting. And we could just go in a lot of directions with that.
Yeah, we absolutely will. But I
Mhm.
like the way you say that because I think it is, in some sense it's very simple, um, but it's a way of reframing things, right? And maybe it's a way of
Hmm.
reframing things that people already do, but in many cases maybe aren't doing enough of. So,
Hmm.
these three
Hmm.
things, loving, learning, and playing, they're things that are kind of intrinsic to who we are as people, right? And I think
Hmm.
they're things that we do naturally and abundantly when we're children.
Hmm.
But then we get older, our minds get filled with all sorts of crap and sticky false
Hmm.
narratives about who we are and what success is and what we should be chasing. And um,
Hmm.
it's common enough for people to become disconnected from those things because of that, right? So
Oh, yes.
that's where I'm going to lead you in here because
Yes, yes,
that's what
yes.
you do, right? For over 25 years as the founder and director of Parent University, which is based in Savannah, where we both live.
Hmm.
Um, you've been helping adults, mostly parents, get back to pursuing learning for its own sake and not just as a
Yes.
means towards getting a job or getting more money or something, but learning for its own sake and helping them
Hmm.
model what that lifelong learning looks like for their children, right? So we can just start
Hmm.
off simple. Tell me about Parent University. How did it begin? When did it begin? What do you actually do?
Well, the model that you and I have, looked at together over some recent months.
Hmm.
Um, as you said, with um, love, learn, and play. As you say, it looks simple,
Hmm.
but actually, so does a pristine, clear body of water that may go down miles. But on the surface, it looks like a simple thing. And maybe there's something to be considered in that. It's something to be considered because if it looks simple, it attracts things, and it doesn't look threatening or anything like that. So you might stick your toe in it, you know, because it's got to be safe if it's sitting there. But in fact, it might be very deep. It might be very sophisticated. It might be a lot of research behind it. And a lot of work to maintain it. So I just wanted to say that, but I have always been a learner. I don't know why, but I know it's true.
Hmm.
Um, when I was young, I'm one of many children. What we considered it was like seven of us, seven kids, and I was the one that my attention was drawn back there in the 60s to the space race. And I was the one that had models and a microscope and even a telescope, even though in Philadelphia it wasn't very useful. The sky wasn't such that it afforded astronomy, but that was my thing. I was inquisitive, and uh, in most environments, particularly environments I felt comfortable in, I didn't mind people knowing I was inquisitive. There's some social environments when you're very young where you might not want people to know that you're a learner, so to speak. Um, but that's who I was at my core. I truly was, and that's never changed.
Hmm.
So, uh, as I said, I'm from Philadelphia, and I came from a big family, and I had a lot of kind of scholastic, kind of tangential experiences, and I always enjoyed them, probably more than I shared. I
Hmm.
really did, and so that as I saw myself being an astronaut slash scientist, and I thought by now we'd be on the moon. Actually, this is just for your podcast. But of course, none of that happened. But I did study science and particularly electricity. And so when I got old enough to pursue employment, I bent my path towards the electrical field. And the reason that's important, in a couple minutes, um, is because in that field, you really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Some fields you can fudge. You really can. I mean, you can fudge the whole, when you're in a field like electricity, it pays to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
You
you
don't want
might
to
have
mess
a,
up electricity in the workplace.
yes, because you could have a short career if you do. See, this is joke. Okay, very good.
You could have
But
a short life if you do.
that's the point. A very short career that could be your life. And I've seen that. So um, I trust studying and I trust people who lend themselves to securing knowledge.
Hmm.
I feel comfortable. And too often in our society, in my opinion, people say things and which they really haven't studied. They just say it, and because they say it, it's true or something. I don't know, but that's not where I'm comfortable. But I'm very comfortable with people who actually believe what they said because they know through research. And I don't mean everything you have to do write a paper on, but I mean pursue knowledge actively and believe what you're saying because you have studied it. So that helped me as an electrician. I also was in the Air Force. I may have told you I was um, in the Air National Guard and I had a technical career there. Well, my technical career in Savannah was at International Paper, was Unicamp. But I also have, because I came from this big family, I have this propensity to want to solve social problems. When you're like the oldest brother,
Hmm.
got a lot of brothers under you, and if they get in trouble, you're in trouble because you were the
Yeah.
oldest. You want to kind of keep that down to a minimum. And so when I see things, us with a problem, I said, well, how can we fix it? It's just who I am. Let me get that. I had no idea that's sculptured my behavior for whatever. So way back, way back now, I'm saying it's you. The back in the 1990s, I was married and I had several children, and I was on several different organizations that sought to create a better social environment.
Hmm.
One of them was, and Alan, we could have the whole show on just those things, but let's but let's talk about the one I was Mayor Floyd Adams asked actually my faith organization actually to send a representative to his Human Relations Commission because of some various social, racial things that were going on that he wanted to try to nip it in the bud for an old saying. Um,
And this
and
is
I was
Savannah.
saying,
This is Savannah, Georgia, just to be clear for.
Savannah, Georgia. I've left Philadelphia. I attended the University of Pittsburgh and then I was transferred to Savannah State. And then I got married. And now we're fast forward to whereas I'm a father of four, and I'm on this thing called the Human Relations Commission. And so people wanted to picket the schools because of this flare up of racial discord. And that happened regarding schools and regarding what somebody said to somebody else. Maybe a teacher said it to a student or something, and or the student's parents. And boom, now you've got the faith-based community, the rest of the community all up in arms. And some of the parents wanted to start picketing, things like that. Well, the mayor didn't want that. Um, and he came to his Human Relations Commission and says, what are we going to do about this? I feed you guys and ladies, you know, shrimp salad sandwiches every so often. So you're a real commission, right? So what are we going to do? My propensity is to let's study it. Let's what are the facts? You're reading this, you're seeing these one sentence things on the news,
Yeah.
and you're seeing these pictures of a few people that I don't, who knows if they even have any idea what they're picketing about. So I said, so why don't we get some people together? Why don't we get some people together and we come and talk about what's happening and why are the adults doing this thing that could have a negative impact on the children's moment in the education environment, which may never come again.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden, when I was in Philadelphia, we had a couple of circumstances where teachers picketed or whatever, and you can never get that time back. If that's 1/3 of your fifth grade year, when you're in this mode, you're not having to earn a living, you're not having to pay bills, things of this nature. But now the teachers are striking, but you don't get that back. So I felt kind of passionate about let's the adults figure out how to work this. So uh, I began talking about how do we find out the facts and why these facts make us want to react like we're acting. And why don't we all come together? Well, they saw themselves as antagonists in a circumstance, and there really wasn't much interest in getting together. But I think by visiting small groups of people over a period of about a year and a half, I was able to remind people that I'm not coming to them as an expert because I'm not. I'm coming to them as another parent, as another citizen. And I'm in a position and I'm feeling so inclined that if you share with me what you need, I'll do my best to craft something that fits what you've asked. And because like I said, was a parent of four, and I was an electrical technician, an electrician out of this paper mill, people began to trust me because I wasn't coming to them as like a authority in the community.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the same time, I was going to places in the community so that uh, people that hired people and restaurants and law enforcement and various people who would benefit from a community that's not in turmoil, right? And would come to them like that and say, "Would you support this event where people are coming together and talking constructively and even learning what the true facts are?" And they said, "Sure." But it was, I could tell they were like, "Who are you again?" didn't you decline the paper bill? And I said, yes, but they said, okay, if you can make it happen, make it happen. And over a period of time, we were able to call through the small groups, we were able to call a large group together. And at that large group, it was called Can We Talk, was
Hmm.
the name of the meeting. And that had been kind of the theme, why are we protesting? Can we talk? You know,
Yeah.
and so we came together, both the community and the parents, and of course, sometimes they are both. They're interchangeable. You can position them, and they're one leg right on the other. But however you identified yourself, come to this meeting, and we'll begin to learn what the problem is and see how we can fix it. That was an accomplishment in and of itself. And Al, I must share with you, I thought that meeting was going to be it. I mean, we were going to have that meeting and then maybe a follow-up meeting. This was 1999. And after that meeting, once we got everybody together and had a conversation, maybe we had one more meeting after that, and that would do it. But at that meeting, we decided on creating something that's come to be known as Parent University. And um, we talked about when we would all get together and do these classes that we said might help the dialogue. And
Mm.
it was like 20 different things. And some of it was around not understanding school. Some of it was around how the average parent felt minimized when they walk into school and powerless and blamed. Very, very, very much the blame. If the child's acting up, clearly that's your fault, kind of thing. And so they're not their highest human presentation. And they can be triggered very easily by a wrong sentence or a wrong word or a wrong glance. So then they came to the school to make something happen positive, but now somebody said something and triggered them, and now it didn't go well. So that's how. But we all agree. I'm leaving out a whole bunch, but maybe next time. But I'm to the community's credit. They said, okay, the school system wanted it for many reasons that we can go into another time. The faith community wanted it because they had called for a boycott and they really didn't want to do it, but they had to do it because they had said they were going to do it. And so to save face, as much as anything, they said, okay, well let's try this, and that would kind of take the pressure off. And at that meeting, as I said, we decided we would do Parent University. So only had one other thing. Just before that meeting, I went to the school board. I can't tell this part out. The first time I went to the school board, they looked at me like, "What are you talking about? Why would we participate in that? We don't know you. You're not one of our employees. You might get parents in there and you might be a rebel rouser. You might be, you want to incite. They didn't know me, right? And but there was an election happening, and two of the people running for school board, they both supported this parent university concept.
Mm.
They both won. So
Nice.
after that, when I came back to the school board, both of them were very vocal. They said, "Well, why wouldn't we, you
Yeah.
know, try this?" You know, and so a little reluctantly, but still, they said, "Okay, we'll try." And so then that's when we had the big meeting and we came up with Parent University. We came up with 20 classes. We came up that what day it would be, a lot of decisions. And we came up with the classes because that's what parents asked for who were in the meeting. So
Right.
what was important is that parents saw that this was their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, and I know you've seen me every time. I never miss an opportunity to remind the parents that this is their learning space.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
I
then we
can
did.
speak to my own experience from that, just from this past weekend. So, Parent University, you do this typically once a month, and it'll be at like a high school or an elementary school.
Hmm.
usually like what, like 100 parents come out. It's usually a pretty
I'd
packed
say,
house.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd say.
So I've been there once as a participant, and
Hmm.
once just this, a week ago
Hmm.
as an instructor, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And like you keep saying, you always ask the parents what they want to know or what they need to know, right? Like this is a very
Hmm.
important part of your story, like the story the whole way through that you just told me, right? It's always about like what do people actually want? What do people actually need? And
Yes.
that's not an easy thing to anticipate, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, this class that I taught for the most recent Parent University session, it was on artificial intelligence, right? And
Wow.
yeah, so I made this PowerPoint and I kept it very simple. And I
Hmm.
thought it was like as simple as it could get, right? Like, what is
Hmm.
AI? How do you use it? How do you talk to your kids about it? But there still was like one major thing that I didn't anticipate that came up in both sessions I taught, which was, okay, but how do we find it? Like, it's such an obvious thing to me, right? Like, you just Google it, you
Yes,
type it into your
yes,
address bar. But they didn't know, and I didn't know that they didn't know, right? So that
yes.
it's always important to understand what they actually need. And while ostensibly, you look at something like Parent University conceptually and you think like this is about learning, um, I think that love is actually a really big part of it too, that shows up, in that same vein, but in like
Hmm.
small ways, right? They're ways that have big impacts, but just little
Hmm.
things that I've noticed going there, right? Like that you charter a bus so that transportation doesn't get in the way of people who want to learn.
Yes,
You,
sir.
you bring in breakfast and lunch. You bring in childcare so that taking care of kids doesn't have to get into the way of people who want to learn.
Yes,
And all of that's free. And all
yes.
of that, it comes from like a deep sensitivity to what do these people actually need and not like what do
Hmm.
I think these people actually need.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so, I just thought maybe you could speak to the importance of love in Parent University.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, the first having the parent university was a manifestation of love. I mean, see, parents think that school is for the children. I mean, we say it all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's the kids. It's the kids. But who's raising the kids?
Yeah.
How can you authentically say you're interested in the success of the children and not be interested in the success of their families, particularly their parents? There's something odd. We say it all the time that it's
Yeah.
like it's normal. But if indeed you care about that child that was your best student, how can you not care about where that child goes home to every day, or what kind of experience they're having, or how the child's parents can help you do as a teacher what you are charged to do? It's one of the ironic things in that I find in our whole pedagogy and our whole teaching environment is that the
Yeah.
parents are the children are going down the road in this huge parade towards success, but the parents are on the sidelines.
Mm.
And I find that an odd metaphor. I find that just that they're all going down. And what we need to do is find out how can each person in a family dynamic can help with the education of all.
Right.
And I think we can. But a parent is not a child. And what we miss is that the child has compensatory stuff. They have to do this legally. They've got to, but a grown up is a grown up. Don't we on TV you see every day, I mean, commercials and everybody's pandering to the adult to get out of the adult whatever it is they want to get out of them. So you can't just say, hey, you need to come learn this. You got to appeal to their sense of need,
Yeah.
you see. And if you do that, you'll get a few. And we've had as many as 500 people at a parent university event. That's no kidding. I mean, you can go online right now and see couple hundred, stuff like that. There's so many things we had to change. There's so many concepts we had to change. First of all, probably 80 or 90% of the people in there are parents if they're not children. See, so
Yeah.
even if you're there as a teacher, or you're there
Mhm.
as the security, or you're there as the kitchen people, you're there as the childcare folks, everybody's a parent. And what we do is, as you can see, we try and raise praise to everybody who's in there around the topic of learning. You see, because it's once we leave school in a compulsory manner, the ones we 12th grade or whatever, we think, okay, now it's our choice, or rather, we're going to come and learn. And for a lot of reasons, I'm going to choose not to,
Yeah.
because my experience in school was not always pleasant. You might have been judged significantly by your peers and by the people um, who were actually writing those letters on your paper in red, you know. Uh, and so people opt, no, well, I don't want any more of that. And in the meantime, knowledge is getting by, and it's
Hmm.
not being, people aren't harvesting it at all because it's so. What we try and do at Parent University is make sure that people feel honored for being there, for taking time out of their busy schedules to come there and learn for themselves. And the side benefit of that is the optically their effort is propagating through the community, and people are seeing that this isn't because you're broken. This is because you are a healthy human being pursuing knowledge, who, I might be a little extreme, but I think that when you stop learning is really about the time you die. Because we are sentient beings that we need knowledge
Yeah.
for so many reasons. And when we stop getting it, we are certainly, maybe dying was a little extreme, but but we need knowledge. It nourishes us. And when we stop having that feeling of accomplishment from learning something, I will say we've taken a detour in our life.
Yeah.
I'd rather put it that way. So when people all of a sudden in their life, as you've seen, they're in an environment where they're being praised for learning, for sharing what they don't know. Like, they don't feel ashamed. They like, they come and told you, how do you find AI? Now they may have went years without asking anybody
Yeah.
because they didn't want
Yeah.
anybody to know they don't know.
Yeah, it's really amazing, just the sense you get when you walk into one of these things of how much people want to be there, and how not shy they are about saying what they don't know and what they want to learn, what they want to know, and you've often reiterated this to me over and over again that play is really the engine of this thing, like that, and that it's not an accident, it's very strategic, that making this fun is the key to making it work. And in our studies into flourishing, I can point you to, hundreds of books that have argued for the importance of love and argued for the importance of learning, for human flourishing. And play
Yes,
is, I think, the third piece that often gets overlooked the most. And
yes,
so it's refreshing to meet people like you who really see the value in play for adults, and not just like play in the sense of like playing with your toys or skipping around in a garden, but
yes,
just like
yes,
what does it mean to like do something for its own sake, just because you
yes,
want to do it, and because it's fun. So
yes. Well, I
please,
think there's a lot of biochemical stuff that proves that actual fun is when our synapses are firing, we're retaining our whole systems, all of our systems kind of are operating at a slightly higher place. And you can see, even I know my jokes are hilarious. I know they are, but maybe the audience doesn't. But as you can see,
well, but this is important because you have fun too. Like it's very
oh,
clear that you're having fun when you're up there.
yes, 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 very, very much, maybe too much. But I look, I've been doing it for 26 years. I think I get to have fun.
Yeah.
But I remember me when I was a little kid. when I learned something, I mean, I felt good. It literally felt good. And to the point, sometimes I hid it because I'm just having too much fun here. But I knew it motivated me to want to do that again. And if our parents can have fun and understand that learning can bring fun, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be like a athletic competition or anything like that, but just acquiring knowledge. And I will say again, once again, I will say to you, when those parents ask you those questions, they're they're trusting you
Yeah.
because a lot of them thought I'm not going to ask anybody because I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look lesser than. So if they're asking you those things, that means that they're in an environment where they can actually ask the real questions, not manufactured
Yeah.
questions that you do, but the real questions that are troubling their heart. And then they can, hopefully, that can also reflect in their families that they can go home and somehow um, um, manifest a behavior where we come, that's a household that we can share about what we don't know.
Yeah.
There's no embarrassing that actually it's a praiseworthy attribute
Hmm.
to, to say, look, I don't know something. I need to know that. And I know you've heard me say many times that we call our parents CEOs.
Hmm.
You see, and if someone who is a CEO doesn't know something, they better find out. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So everybody is the CEO of their family, or should be, or at least the co-CEO of their family. And so if their children see that not knowing something is a point of embarrassment and that we can't tell, that's a significant detriment to that family's ability to thrive. So what we do is create that environment with the parents, whereas look, they can tell the children, look, if you don't know something, just ask me. I'm proud of you for telling me, and I'm going to demonstrate that behavior for you. I see those are the things that we've learned. It sounds simple, like love, learn, and play, but
Hmm.
actually it's a very sophisticated behavior that we've modified. And that is that if you feel as though you need information, come get it. It's not something to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on, but that's one of the things over 25 years. I might have mentioned earlier that we started this thing thinking it was going to last a year back in year 2000. And here we are, 2026, and we're, across the country. And we started that in my living room back in 2000. And we did it 3 times a year. And now we're across the country, actually, even outside of the country. And we're doing it scores of times.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about what works really well about this thing, right? And how I think Parent University is a very good embodiment of like love, learning, and play, facilitating flourishing, right? We've also kind of circled around this topic of what inhibits flourishing, right? And specifically, um, one of the things we write about a lot in UEF is what we call means, ends, inversion. So, something that should be treated as a means gets taken as an end. Money is a prime example, right? People pursuing
Yes.
money for its own
Yes.
sake rather than as a tool to achieve something more fulfilling. I think in the case of Parent University, you're attacking something that's kind of like the opposite problem, right? Where it's learning is this thing that should be treated as an end, getting treated as a means. Um,
Yes.
and so, when you invert things like that, it really gets in the way of getting back to like flourishing and focusing on loving, learning, and playing. Um, I'm curious if there are other, whether it's means, ends, inversion specifically, or just other things that you think are like systemic or very common obstacles that get in the way of people
Oh,
flourishing.
absolutely. Absolutely. Hmm. Even the topics, so we're even, love, learn, play. I mean, gee whiz. When you're in school, that's not being reinforced in my
Mm,
mind. I mean, when I came through, we're post industrial revolution folks. Okay. So the only reason I'm sitting here learning this thing, whatever it is so that I can get a job, so that I can get an A on this test, which clearly I'm good if I get an A on the test, regardless of whether the test was meaningful to you or that it helped you or that it made you feel better. Only thing that was important is that you get this mark, this A, or inversely, if you get this F, that actually shapes your identity.
Yeah.
It's an awful dynamic. Um, but but I needed to get this A so that people would think I was smart enough to go to post-secondary school, which would reinforce the importance of these tests and these pre-described topics that I had to take. I didn't ask for, and that were of questionable relevance to my actual aptitude with whatever I wanted to do. Maybe they were, maybe they're perfect. I don't know, but I don't think so. Then I had to take a lot of things, get a grade, then I could come out of the school either one of the top 10% or the bottom whatever percent that, hold on. I think I'm okay. Or, hold on.
Yeah, no
I could,
problem.
I could actually, I had the wrong plug plugged in. Electrical
Oh,
guy,
okay.
you know,
Gotcha.
the electrical, he had the cell phone. But I am so happy to be talking about this piece because if in my day we didn't have it yet, but I would have been one of those students with the ADHD or whatever, because my mind was everywhere all the time, you know, and and some topics just I didn't get it. Why am I having to study this? And why do I have to get an A in it or something like that? So that's why it's so important that we say in Parent University, parents, tell us what you want to learn.
Yeah.
Inherent in that, you would think that they would thrive or to have a tendency to thrive in an environment where they're studying what they asked for. And I have my doubts that the plasticity of our brain, responds better with a certain learning stimuli than it does with others. I think it's just the actual learning that
Mhm.
actually makes the things happen. And then our brain responds to it in that way. Like a computer's brain, inside of what we call a computer's brain with the ones and zeros, I don't think the computer cares what the stuff is, but it works it. It because that's what it does. And if our brain doesn't get that, um, I think the same thing happens with it that happens with muscles, and that's it atrophies or at least it gets rusty. And so I think that when we become learners, just like anything else we do constantly, we get a rush and a dopamine, adrenaline, whatever it is, and we begin to like it and actually enjoy it. And so we'll do it more. You see, and so see, there's a lot more science. I know when I'm out there, nobody's thinking that he's done doing this from a scientific point of view, but there is a lot of study about it, and
Oh, for sure.
it's great fun. Fun will incite us to more fun. You see, and so this is why we make sure that we do that. We also we reward. You see, reward too. We have the raffles and things of that nature that to give people a concrete reward, or at least somebody. I mean, we don't have infinite resources or anything like that, or it wouldn't even be to our benefit to have them, but we give parents um, this thing that you win because of this behavior. And so not only did you get knowledge, but you had a good time. Your kids were taken care of. You got a ride here. Your inherent value is demonstrated
Hmm.
throughout the event, not just with words, not just the words, but we actually um, uh, demonstrate to people how valuable we think they are. That's just some of the things that we do. But I just thought I'd say those things.
Yeah. So I want to sort of refer back to at the very beginning of this conversation, I mentioned this other book that our organization produced called Bridges Across Humanity, right?
Hmm.
And I mention that again because to me, like that's who you are. As you are a bridge across humanity. That's the
Thank
role
you.
you've served in my life since I moved to Savannah, where I knew nobody coming here. And in the 5 months I've been here, I met probably more people here than I did in the 10 years that I lived in Boston. And I think
Oh,
that all started with you,
thank you.
right? I'll,
Thank you.
I'll give some credit to myself, but that started with you, right? But
Thank
you're a
you.
bridge across so many different things, right? You're a bridge between like science and these other forms of knowing. You're a bridge between the
Mhm.
schools and parents. Um, and this book obviously that we worked on was about bridges across different religious
Yes.
traditions. Um,
Yes.
but but
Yes.
but it too had perspectives from science and psychology to show that these things are not just isolated to one domain of knowledge. Like these are universal truths, right? So
Yes.
um,
Yes.
I'm wondering if you could speak to the importance of, well, I guess why is it so important to you to serve that bridging function? And I guess just more generally speaking, what do you think the significance is of interconnectedness as
Mm.
part of your worldview?
Mm. Wow. I described very early in our conversation today where I was in my family, the role I played in my family structure. So
Hmm.
it was always important to me uh, to be the logical mind, the peacemaker, and it was for very selfish reasons, right? I didn't want to get in trouble, right? Because
Yeah.
my younger brothers or younger sisters had gotten a fight or something like that. But as I got older, um, I found I resonated towards things that brought people together. And unfortunately, I didn't see religion as being one of those things.
Hmm.
If I must be frank, actually, it was the opposite. Uh, Now, I did realize that religion is important. That we
Hmm.
have to, it's kind of as a social mechanism. I mean, people get married, people die. There are various customs that people have to do that holds a community together. But I
Hmm.
noticed just as many as the practices were separating us.
Hmm.
Of the 99.9% of the world that we have in common, man, we sure focus a lot on that 1%. It's really strange. Once again, the lack of logic in our thinking about it, and our tendency to clump in places that because we clumped in them, well, now we're the inside and everybody else is the outside. I've literally heard people say, okay, if you're not of this faith, or if you're not, don't go to this institution, whether it's a temple or mosque or church or what have you, well, your outcome's not going to be good. However they describe it. It's not the optimal, whether you call it heaven or whatever, it's not the optimal if you're not one of us, which I have found very counter to logic in my head. I personally did find a religion that doesn't adhere to that. And of course, I gravitated towards it. It's called the Baha'i faith. And
Please tell us about that if you don't mind.
oh, I don't mind at all. I okay. So I came from uh, the University of Pittsburgh to Savannah State, and I pledged this fraternity. This is a real story, and I pledged this fraternity, and it was a what they call an HBCU,
Hmm.
Savannah State. So, and the fraternity was a, fraternity that African Americans, males gravitated towards. So I was one of those. I was 18 years old, and it looked like they were, I don't know. I had my reasons for which I won't discuss today,
Sure. But yeah,
for being a part of that group.
HBCU, historically black college and universities. Yeah. So
Yes,
at the
yes.
time, that was what Savannah State was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At Savannah State College at the time, and it's now Savannah State University.
Okay.
And very quickly, I started pledging Kappa Alpha Psi at the University of Pittsburgh. And during my pledge period, my grandmother died. And I came to her funeral. Now, in Pittsburgh, I realized this is expensive. And like I said, one of seven children, I don't have the money to continue. So, but at my grandmother's funeral, my uncle, Dr. Ernest Nicholson, worked at Savannah State College. And he says, you don't even have to go back to Pittsburgh. You can come to Savannah State College and you can go to college there. It doesn't cost as much.
Wow.
And so I ended up going to Savannah State College. And because I had pledged at the other college with my cousin, by the way, who was my roommate, there was no way I was going to go back to Philadelphia and he finished his and I didn't finish mine. So I decided to pledge this fraternity. But those were my reasons. I want to give you there wasn't any light in the sky and anything, nothing like that. But I'm going to finish my pledging. And on this line, they call it this pledge line, and people have seen it on TV and all that. I met this gentleman who was white, and he was and so clearly we have some questions. What's going on here, buddy? And he said things like, why shouldn't I? We're all one family, and I've got some friends who belong to this fraternity. I want to be a member. And we're like, well, let's just say sometimes pledging is not the most pleasant experience, right? And we would say, I gotta be careful. I gotta be careful for this, right? So I got to know this guy's name is George Gary. I said, man, why are you doing this? There's easier ways to hang out with your friends, right? And he says, well, I'm doing it because I want to actually do what I say, not just say kind of stuff. And he says, and besides that, the way I look at things, I'm a Baha'i. He was a Baha'i.
Hmm.
And we're all one, man. And all of us, we need to think about ourselves in that way. And it's not whether you're a Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist or there's only one creator. And, here I am. I'm like 18 and a half. I'm from Philadelphia. I knew everything. You wouldn't believe it. I knew everything. So I knew that if I hadn't heard of this thing, it couldn't be real. It was easy. It was an easy equation,
Right.
right? It's very easy to figure both sides of the equal sign. So I'm like, I like this guy because I know that with the pleasure thing we became, friends. And I'm like, well, gee whiz, I think he has got caught up in something. And I'm going to, because I'm from Philadelphia and I'm 18 years old, and I'm going to read up on it real quick. I thought it would be a little pamphlet or something like that. And I'm going to extract him from this mess he has got into. And he was a Vietnam vet, by the way. So I said, George, let me read some of that stuff that you have come to adhere to, and then we'll talk about it. And I figured I would quickly let him see the possible thing he has kind of been misled.
Yeah, you're gonna poke the
And
holes in it.
yeah, but not enough to hurt his feelings
Yeah.
or anything like that, but just to, jog his mind. We all sometimes get off on the wrong exit. And so he gave me some literature. And once again, I'm that inquisitive, studying person. I didn't even know I was that to that degree. But I will study sincerely. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And he gave me this first little book. I said, okay, I'll figure this out. And by the time I read, I got, ooh, okay, well, okay. I didn't see any holes in that one at all. So I asked for another, and he gave me a thicker one. And I got, whoa. And then finally, about the third book, I was horrified. And I'm
Mm,
going to use the word horrified. I could not believe what this awakened in me.
mm.
It was like I had been under a shade, under in a bag, under or in a tent or something, and it had been lifted off. And it was noonday sun. And all the things I had said, I maybe I heard them, but I didn't see them in the proper light. Now I need to say this disclaimer. Yes, this happened to me, but it's not like my behavior changed overnight.
Yeah.
They're two different things. I might have known them, but still, I had 18 years of previous programming and traditionals
Yeah,
and
sure.
training. Um, but I became a Baha'i at Savannah State College. I called George, said, George, wow, what do I do now? He says, well, if you want to start receiving materials and things of that nature, I'll come and get you a card. And you'll be able to get the magazine and all that kind of stuff. And you can find out more about the books. Well, that was 52 years ago. And what it has it's been the most dominant force. I want to say this in my life for
Mm,
52 years, the driving force that makes me do more positive things than negative things.
yeah.
And it's completely authentic. Remember, I'm a scientist. And so I consider myself, even though I call myself Baha'i, I consider myself a studier of it.
Yeah.
You see, and to this day, I am completely convinced. And all it's about, if I had to break it down to
Yeah,
one
yeah.
term, it's unity.
Mm,
We're all one. Science says it. I mean, everything says it. We have to contrive things to keep our focus on derision and division because it's clearly we're all breathing the same air. We're all on the same land. Regardless of what side of the ocean you're on. Clearly, we're lucky enough to have astronauts go into space, and you can see we're on this little blue marble together in the universe. Yet we can't see how we are one thing. And what our creator wants is for us to come to recognize that and build a civilization worthy of our status. It doesn't mean we're all the same. Now, if you go outside and you look in your garden, you'll see all kind of flowers, but they're all flowers still.
yeah.
So the other part, and the part I'll leave with, because I could really go off on this, is that why are we here? Why are we here? And the one thing is to know we're created by a loving God. I'll use the word God in this term. But the other thing, just as important, is to serve each other.
Mm,
That's why we're here. Not to make a whole bunch of money, which is fine. Fine, wealth is fine. You can make all of as long as you realize the priority is to feed your brothers, to feed your sisters. Imagine if everyone, just take for a minute, imagine if everyone worked at life from those vantage point. And I think one of the things that I'll leave this conversation with is that our purpose is to know God and to worship God, but it's also to serve thee,
mm.
which I interpret that as serving you, serving others. And believe me, I'm not a fanatical guy. I'm very much a scientist, but the logic in it to me is unescapable.
Yeah.
And I have to, once I know something, I have to not just know it intellectually. I have to throw myself into it as well.
Yeah, well, it's a hell of a statement, the biggest driving force in your life for the last 52 years, but I hear you, and I think it's um, you think about all the people that don't have that, and is it any wonder that we have like these crises of feelings of isolation or lack of
Yes.
meaning, like whatever you want to call it, religion, spirituality, belief system, or
Yes.
something else. We all need that meaning-making system in our lives that we can orient everything else around, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I
I feel
think,
very fortunate. And I want to emphasize, I
yeah,
didn't come looking for anything like this. As a
right,
matter of fact, quite the contrary. I was, uh, shall we say, not very convinced when I heard it. So I didn't, and I walked into it rather reluctantly, actually to disprove that
yeah,
that could possibly happen. But I am so thankful that through learning, through conscious effort to educate myself, this appeared to me. So when I do something like Parent University, you see, it's that same pattern. It's that if we can just learn, if we can just open ourselves to the acquisition of knowledge, our lives, I don't know if anybody will get out of it what I got out of it, have gotten out of it, but our lives will be a little better, a little
yeah.
more illumined. And so that's it.
Cool. I've got one more question I want to ask you, and then I'll open it up to you if there's any last words you want to tell everyone who's listening or will eventually be reading.
Mhm.
But the last interview I did in this series, my guest kind of ended by saying something that really stuck with me, which is, she said that LLP is inevitable. Like learning, loving, and playing more is inevitable because it's who we are, right? And I've been thinking about that. Because it sounded like, this affirmation of um, what we're trying to do or help facilitate. It's in the name, like a universal enlightenment,
Yes.
like a
Yes.
global awakening, right? Again, we can call it many different things, but
Hmm.
some kind of global shift, right? And
Hmm.
you can mention the gentleman's name if you want, but you have a friend who's a very, prominent celebrity, who's
Hmm.
Baha'i,
Hmm.
who has a platform where, you know, people who might not otherwise know him as like a religious
Hmm.
leader or spiritual leader, um, is doing trying to use his platform to help other people develop a meaning making system that they can use to flourish, right? And one
Yes.
one that is based on modernity, like that doesn't have to compromise people's scientific beliefs or knowledge about the world. And it's, this kind of marrying like the ancient spiritual wisdom with like every sort of like modern knowledge discipline that we've gotten from like the modern education system since the first
Hmm.
Enlightenment, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so with all of that going on, I find that to be encouraging. I wonder if you feel like we are kind of on the cusp of this pivotal, uplifting moment in history.
Oh, well, I imagine you're talking about rain.
Yes.
Yeah. I love Rain. We're good friends, actually. We're good friends, and we've hung out. He's on the wrong side of the country. He's a Western,
Yeah.
but we have hung out, and he does have a platform that he uses, and very much it's very serious at times, but also he uses humor and
Hmm.
play, and it's really the same
Well, I
thing.
mean, he uses, so I think it's the same thing that you do, right? Where it's like who he is on the screen is just it's who he is, right? The
Yes,
way that you
yes,
are with me right now, it's the same way you are when you're out there with Parent University. It's the same way you are when you're in Rotary Club. Um,
yes, yes,
Rainn Wilson, he's the same way on this podcast about spirituality as he is when he's on the big screen, right?
yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And so being authentic is an important part of it.
Yeah.
But we have been programmed in by other forces in society to be something other than our authentic self, and that's hard. That takes a lot of work, and it may craft a being that really psychologically struggles because you're not being who you are. But yeah, it's interesting. You should bring up him up because well, I brought him up. Let me be clear. I brought him. Well, you may have helped, but just as his podcast shows some really heavy topics.
Mhm.
Come on there. This
Oh,
this
yeah.
podcast shows that we can explore these really challenging issues and always have a sense of humor and not this
Mhm.
whole thing is the world is foreboding and the sky is falling and um, even though we will from time to time have those moments of difficulty, but these same principles can of love, learning, and play can always be used to elevate us. And also, what one of the things that he and I both agree, and I'm sure he'll call me and tell me I'll ever say that we agree on anything. No, I'm kidding. But see, the creator, like like I want for my children, and everybody would almost everybody who's in there, I want for the children, want the best. Not that we'll relieve our children of struggle, but in the end, we want the best. And even when they were young, when and faulty, when they were learning things, we know that those lessons eventually will prepare them for a life that they couldn't imagine at that time. We're doing the same thing. We're going through a period where we can hardly even imagine the beauty on the horizon.
Hmm.
And when it may seem a little dark or a little rainy or contentious, it's we're accumulating strength to understand the magnificence on the way. And any of us that can help us get there,
Hmm.
any of us can is a service to humanity. And we'll all know what a benefit we help bestow upon all of us. Um, and as the journey continues. And by the way, the journey continues. It doesn't end. It continues. So yeah, I could say that I've I feel really good about the last 26 years of Parent University that I started thinking I was going to do it once or twice and get. But I mean, if there's any story of somebody walking into something they knew not what they were doing.
Just trying to get your shrimp sandwich.
Just trying to get my you were listening. But just trying to get my shrimp sandwich. And 27 years later, here we are. And I've been around the world multiple times now, both with Parent University and with the Baha'i Faith. I've been around the world. So they have some lasting effect in my life. And I'm gonna stay at it for a while. That's all I got.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful note to end on, unless there's anything else you want to say.
No, I'm good. I appreciate you and look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate the time. I know your time is precious, and we'll get together soon, and I've got a copy of this book waiting for you.
I'm looking for it.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Have a great evening. Bye bye.